Oftentimes, when one makes an assertion that others find doubtable or spurious, one may be challenged by a somewhat petulant or childish voice to prove it. Of course, when down this challenge has been thrown, it is the burden of the one making the claim to remove all doubt that they may be incorrect. And there are a number of interesting ways of doing this. The fields of mathematics and logic, naturally, are a veritable hive of proof methods, as there are fewer fields where showing that something is true is more necessary. We have proof by induction, proof by contraposition, proof by exhaustion, and the non-constructive proof, to name just a few. Still, while all of these have their place and are incredibly useful in their own set of circumstances, none of them are my favourite method of demonstrating the veracity of a statement. It may be due to my somewhat contrary nature. I am, after all, a rebel at heart. But my favourite proof technique is reductio ad absurdum, or proof by contradiction. Contrary to what many people may argue, given their experiences with the topic in high school, mathematics is a highly logical field. With this in mind, it is easy to understand the premise behind the proof by contradiction. We start with a hypothesis, the fact that you wish to prove. For our purposes, I'm going to pick a trivial example, to avoid any confusion. Let's say we wish to prove that elephants have mass. It is important, for logical proofs, that this is an objective statement. Unfortunately, we cannot prove that chocolate is delicious, that golf is tedious, or that love is breakfast in bed. We could, however, prove that you are amazing. That is objective, but already fact. After we have our hypothesis, the next step is to assume that the opposite is true. For our example, this would mean that we are assuming elephants have zero or non-existent mass. One thing you need to be careful of in this step is that you are, in fact, using the actual opposite of your initial statement. In mathematics, especially for hypotheses that use logical operators, this is quite simple. For premises that use natural language, however, this is not quite so easy. One may be tempted, for instance, to assume that the opposite of the statement "everybody likes the music of Belle and Sebastian," a reasonable statement, is "nobody likes the music of Belle and Sebastian." This, however, is not the case. In this situation, the opposite of "everybody likes" is "not everybody likes," or, slightly more naturally, "at least one person dislikes." This flaw in the processing of natural languages, as well as the subjectiveness of humans as a whole, has led to a wide variety of logical fallacies being created over time. Tools that people use to, incredibly incorrectly, assert their point must be valid when it has not been demonstrated so. In the case of reductio ad absurdum, we find that misapplications lead to what is commonly known as the straw man or Aunt Sally argument. In this type of argument, the claimant creates the illusion of having denied a proposition by replacing it with a superficially similar yet inequivalent one. They deny the second and, falsely, link this to the disapproval of the first, hoping that their audience won't catch on. Consider the statement, "there is nothing wrong with a couple choosing to not have children." The straw man here might be, if all couples adopted to not have children, the human race would not continue to live on. We would become extinct within a generation. It is a conclusion, but it does not marry to the proposed argument. As I have reiterated several times now, mathematics and logic are fields where certain rules hold true, and must always do so. Facts like a positive number multiplied by a positive number results in a positive number, and a whole number added to a whole number results in a whole number. These rules can be called axioms or laws, and are fundamental to the way that the field works. It is not just mathematics that has these rules. By observation, we can see that the physical world is made up of a set of rules that are obeyed as well. And the next step in our proof is to demonstrate, providing reasoning, that our statement from step 2 breaks at least one of these innate rules. For our simple hypothesis, we can see clearly that if an elephant hits an object, it imparts force onto the object, as force is equal to mass multiplied by acceleration, and if an elephant charging you, acceleration is non-zero, in order for force to be non-zero, mass must have a value. Now, because our inverse hypothesis has broken one of these unbreakable rules, it is logical that it cannot, in our world at the very least, hold true. And because it is untrue, the exact opposite must, logically, be true. And so we have proved our initial hypothesis of elephants having mass by contradicting the opposite situation. Simple, right? Using this technique, there are a number of things that have been proven, some of them with rather important implications. Facts like there is no single largest number, or that there are infinitely many primes. But my favourite fact that has been proven with this method, one that has no implications for everyday life, but nevertheless is beautiful in what it states, is that all numbers are interesting. Let's look at this statement as a second example. Our hypothesis is that all numbers are interesting. The opposite of this statement is that there is at least one uninteresting number. If a number were the first uninteresting number, that in itself would be an interesting fact about that number, thereby making it interesting. Because that number is now interesting, we find the next first uninteresting number and apply the same rule to it. Again, it becomes interesting. And so the cycle continues infinitely, and by contradiction of our negative hypothesis, all numbers must be interesting. Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the end of another video. If you like this, please remember to share it with your friends and click the little thumbs up sign down here. If you really liked it and you want to see more, then you can subscribe to my channel by clicking what I assume is just around this portion of the screen. And if you want to see my previous video, then you can click around here somewhere. Alright, I will see you next week.